as you know, is he is a terrorism and global security expert with experience in the Balkans, the Middle East, all over the world, and taught SEER training, which just blows my mind. Okay, so Malcolm,
hello, Randy.
Hi, how are you? First of all, congratulations on a great appearance on Bill Maher, who I can't stand. So that was good. Yeah, what was it like sitting there with Milo?
Well, first off, you're gonna hate me for this, but or love me. I had no real clue who Milo was. I thought Milo was supposed to be this hated figure of the alt-right, and I see this guy who's up in his grandmother's pearls and, really a sexually confused young man.
Yes.
And he's sitting there insulting transgendered people.
He's the oddest duck I've ever seen in my life.
Oh, he's done, though.
Yeah,
he was pretty much done when Larry Wilmore was through with him. I just piled on at the end to just make the point that you're really insignificant and nothing, and goodbye.
Yeah, and it was over the next day, so, thanks for that, because, just the look on your face was priceless. It was just so awesome, I gotta tell you. But listen, we got big fish to fry here. Another person, another cabinet member, another person, that's serving Donald Trump on, national security and law and order, just recused himself. Jeff Sessions just finally recused himself from the Russia investigations. Now, Flynn, of course, had to resign because he lied about his contacts with Russia. Paul Manafort was fired or left because of his contacts with Russia. Michael Cohen, they're still trying to figure out if he was ever in Prague and what his contacts with Russia, and that's the president's, lawyer. You've got this character Felix Sater now running around from Bayrock, which was
right.
What is it with? And Trump was in Russia in 2013 at a party for oligarchs, for the Miss Universe pageant, and yet he says he hasn't talked to any Russians in 10 years because he would have nobody to talk to. Kislyak now, we know, was invited. He was a guest at one of the foreign policy events that the Trump administration, the Trump campaign had, and that was by invite only. So what is the deal with them and the freaking Russians?
Today I was having a little indirect with Jonathan Capehart, who he wants me on his podcast, and it became really clear after explaining it that this is about a large source of money.
Oil and gas.
And not just oil and gas, but this conception out there, probably pushed by people who would know, Rex Tillerson, and others.
Oh, I left out Rex. Yeah. Oh, damn. Yeah.
Yeah, but that Russia is this enormous pool of untapped, clean, non-Arab money. And that they really have an opportunity. If this were Saudi Arabia, none of this, not a word of this would matter. Because we expect that. We know what comes out of Saudi Arabia. We know they exercise influence operations through the use of large quantities of money and gifts and potential oil deals. But this is Russia, an adversary of the United States, a nation which has been trying to knock down the European Union, knock down European democracy, and replace it with authoritarianism. And they apparently have done that in the United States. So these people were feeling that everything, they had to have had conversation. They had to have known that the Russians were to be so friendly with them and to invite them everywhere and to be meeting with them. And the arrogance of thinking there would be no problem about having contacts with the Russians. They had to have thought or realized that there was going to be a gigantic reward behind that. And that's the only thing that explains it. On the other hand, the Russians viewed them as, intelligence assets, viewed them as people who were stupid, who could be manipulated, who could be purchased. And Vladimir Putin himself probably recruited Donald Trump using our agent recruitment acronym, MICE. MICE, which is money, ideology, co-option, coercion, and ego. And when you go after somebody with those four things, where you ply them with money, they will flip on you. They will they will do what you want. And
well, obviously, and what's really amazing is Trump signaled early on, after Kislyak was in the front row of an invited foreign policy speech. I mean, Sessions used to be totally anti-Russia. Then he said, no, it would be really great if we could all get along. Well, Trump gets up there and he changes the GOP platform, saying he would give, he wouldn't give lethal weapons to Ukraine after the Crimea, and then stands up there and says, well, Crimea, they want it. First he said he wasn't in Crimea to George Stephanopoulos, who said, yeah, okay. And then he said, well, if they wanted to be part of Russia, 8,000 people were killed in Crimea, but he leaves that part out. They wanted to be part of Russia. And then he changes the GOP platform. And then he gives a speech saying NATO is obsolete. And he's all about Brexit, meaning that he wants the European Union dissolved, so each little country, doesn't have the power of being in a union any longer. They're just individual little countries. And he's all about Brexit. And Nigel Farage is like his best freaking friend. And and then there's all this talk about how they cultivated Trump since for 5 years they've been trying to cultivate him since he was there and wanted to do a Trump Tower. And was working with Felix Sater and Bayrock was introducing him.
To be honest, I think that they cultivated Trump.
That's what I said.
They didn't try. I mean,
you think they did?
2013 was the point where, look, Vladimir Putin was a human intelligence officer. His job was to recruit, manipulate people to go from East Germany to West Germany and steal technology, computer technology, ironically. And then became, as a KGB officer, he did this. And then when communism fell, he became the director of all the resources of the KGB with the new name, the FSB. He is a spy master. He had to have seen Donald Trump as an interesting personality and just insane about his money. And they used the oligarchs of Russia to recruit him as an asset, not knowing he would run for president, but knowing he would be a very interesting American subject who they could use. And then, lo and behold, he runs for president, and he runs on the platform of Moscow's foreign policy. It's utterly amazing. And, Randy, here's the thing. You a service person. We both serve. Here's the thing that drives me the most crazy. I have American citizens, 65 million of them, right now, who love and admire an ex-KGB officer whose intention is to destroy American democracy. And they view Donald Trump as their savior, and Trump is spouting the policy of that KGB officer. 10 years ago, this would have been treason. Today, it's called partisanship. It's considered acceptable. And, liberals are crazy, but it's okay for them to essentially side with our enemy.
Well, there's this there have been these massive campaigns online. I mean, I've been looking at their Cambridge Analytics, how they went about it, and the Facebook group. There's a guy in San Antonio who had never done politics in his life. They gave him $2 million, started on Facebook, and was able to raise $230 million for Trump by invading people's news feeds and spreading all this garbage, and became very, very wealthy. I'm trying to copy it to tell you the truth.
Well, the thing is now they've got algorithms in the way to block these mass campaigns. But this has been developed by the Russians. This is part of the Russian hybrid warfare strategy, where they would use propaganda, political warfare tools, cyber warfare, theft of materials. Look, this is all just part of a very, very grand strategy on the Russians' part, where they are creating a chain of authoritarian dictatorships which will look like Russia. And they intend, by their own admission, and the worst part is Steve Bannon, the president's advisor, is a great admirer of this Russian belief that you need to destroy Western liberal democracy.
Well, because they're both white nationalists. I mean, that's just the common bond between Vladimir Putin and Bannon. I mean, I've been to Russia. You can't.
Sure.
Yeah, you can't be a Jew there, you can't be black there, and you can't be gay there. You can't, look at what happened to the girl band Pussy Riot because they sang a song, they go to jail. I mean, this is really what's coming here because quite frankly, I look at what Trump has said, in that 51 lies he told the other night, but what his intention is obvious. He's trying to, build up military power. He's trying to build up police forces. Jeff Sessions, so the scary part about Jeff Sessions recusing himself from this today is that now he'll have a lot more time to not look into police forces that practice civil rights violations.
Well, sure. This will free up Jeff Sessions to really damage the Department of Justice on everything but the Russians. And of course, he wouldn't recuse himself unless he felt very comfortable that that his participation in anything was covered. And, the cover-up is coming. I mean, I don't like using phrases like that. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm an intelligence professional. Yeah. But by God, the things that are going on right now, all right, are just downright un-American, and we have Americans embracing it, not just nationalism. It's really white supremacy.
Yeah.
And they are happy to go along with Russia's plan to do this in the United States, in England, Germany, France, the Netherlands, and then essentially align ourselves with Russia and this axis of authoritarian nations. This is absolutely against everything the last 240 years of American history has shown, and the closest thing we've had to it is the secession, right? Is this Southern ideology of withdrawal. These people are not the secession. They are that ideology taking over mainstream Americanism. Right. And we have to fight to defend it.
Well, we're up against a lot here. I mean, it seems like every single person around Trump is part of this, this ideology. I mean, I look at some of the comments that were in the paper today. Stephen Hall, the former head of Russia operations for the CIA, he said, of course, Russia would be keenly interested in Jeff Sessions. So why does he conceal it? Do you know? And Richard Burt, the lobbyist for something called the New European Pipeline, also known as Gazprom. Right? He wanted cooperation to build a pipeline that would bypass Ukraine and Belarus so that Russia's influence over Europe would be increased. He wanted to buy, and the Polish, when Sessions says the Polish ambassador came and the Ukrainian ambassador came, of course they came because
they're terrified.
They were against it. And they but he had a couple of dinners with these guys. No other members of the Armed Services Committee met with the Russian ambassador. But I look at this fake news and how it's being aggregated to the point where, you tell people the truth about what's really going on and you try and say, look, no matter what your political persuasion is, I don't think you really want, a country where there's no law, where there's no due process, where you're wiretapped, where neighbors rat on neighbors, you got a Stasi police force. And some of them will say, I do, and I want these people out of my country, and if that's what I want this, and it just freaks me out.
I know. Well, David Frum wrote a brilliant piece today about what the rise of authoritarianism will look like in the United States, and it starts off with Trump's reelection because Trump is using. I've actually said this on television that the Trump White House, it appears to have a Russian political warfare advisory team on their staff. They are doing everything from the Vladimir Putin rise to power playbook. Someone is talking to these people. Someone is meeting with them. Someone is advising them, or they are reading the way that Putin rose to power and other authoritarians rose to power, and they are trying to replicate it. And they are replicating it within the template of American normalcy. So, as David Frum put in his article, everything will appear very similar than the way it is today. It's just that they will make the news media roll over for them. They will buy out parts of the news media. That's what the Russians did. That's what Putin did. And they will tame, the industry because, the industry wants to get along. Trump will take the credit for everything, that's being done in industry. So, every job that came under Obama, he's going to claim it was his.
Yeah, he already did. I mean, he's standing there in that joint session, and he's saying, look at all the jobs I've already created, but 95 million people are still unemployed. That's like, that would be like a 33% unemployment rate, and it's 4.8%. I mean, the man just is,
right.
He can't tell the truth, but he loves to use fear and darkness and this dark dystopian version of, how he sees America and inner cities, and yet he puts Jeff Sessions in charge of civil rights. And the sick thing is, there's two civil rights things that Sessions, pulled out of the other day. One was the transgender bathroom thing, said, Title IX, which is a federal title, is a states' rights issue now. And also said he's going to go after, marijuana users, which is a great way to, put people in private prisons, which he said he's bringing back. And then Texas had a voter suppression investigation, or a racial voter suppression, like North Carolina had a case.
Voter suppression law.
Yeah, and Jeff, the case was moving forward, and Jeff Sessions said the Justice Department is no longer pursuing this case, even though North Carolina, their courts found that they were suppressing people based on race. So he's not doing that. And then yesterday he said that he feels bad for the police of Chicago because they've been asked so many civil rights questions after Loretta Lynch commissioned a 2-year investigation and found that they were massively abusing people's civil rights, massively profiling people and shooting them unarmed, and no one was ever held responsible, and the training was bad, and they didn't even understand non-lethal use of force because their training videos didn't include the use of a taser. Anyway, he said he's not going to look at any civil rights violations from any police department in the United States because they have to be able to do their jobs. And this is why there's so much violence in Chicago. Not because the police in Chicago aren't trusted, because they shoot black people on sight. No, he said it's because we question them. So, this whole administration is all about militarization. It's all about, suppression. It's all about taking away people's civil liberties. It's all about taking away the right to vote. I mean, where is his investigation to these 3 to 5 million people that fraudulently voted? You'll never get it, but it's a great excuse to suppress even more people from voting.
All of this is part of the authoritarian playbook.
Yes.
And but they will only take away or manipulate enough laws to where most people won't complain. Look, don't forget that half, full 50%, 120 million Americans eligible to vote did not vote.
I know.
That was part of the dynamic of Russian hybrid warfare. They create so much chaos in the air that you eventually become completely disinterested from the process.
Well, that's the messaging part that we were talking about with the the analytics and the logarithms and the algorithms that they understand how to push out this ridiculous nonsense about Hillary being a pedophile and suppressing her vote. I mean, they totally suppressed her vote this way in those 3 blue states. I mean,
they successfully did what the first visual sign of this intelligence operation was the attack on the Democratic National Convention and the intent to split the Bernie Sanders people away from the party.
Yeah.
And they successfully did that. I think the statistic was there were 800,000 Bernie Sanders write-ins during this election, and or some insane number, but certainly more than 70,000, which we lost by. And Trump managed to. He won this election with Russian influence. The American mentality, the mindset of this country was hacked, and the news media contributed to it by going and chasing any shiny object that said Hillary's emails, even though all it showed was that there was a old grandmother who didn't know how to really use email.
So then how do I fit Comey into this picture? Okay, because see, now I don't know how you feel about it. I
can't figure it out.
I can't figure it out either. I mean, I keep saying, Comey, be my boyfriend. I've told you this before. Just do the right thing when no one's looking. But today there was a meeting of the Gang of Eight. And they said that Comey was not going to share any information that he's gathered in this investigation thus far with them. Now, how?
No, I can explain that.
Okay.
And, the one thing that I think Comey viewed the information that was going around with Hillary Clinton as sort of benign and wouldn't have as much effect on politics as he thought. However, the one thing that a director of the FBI won't do is they will never talk about a counterintelligence investigation. What's going on right now with Carter Page, who is going to be on Chris Hayes tonight, interviewing Chris Hayes on MSNBC tonight, and I'll be commenting right afterwards.
Oh, great.
But Carter Page and Roger Stone and Paul Manafort and Flynn, what's going on there is they are being actively investigated by the United States spy hunters. That's who the counterintelligence people are. They are not regular FBI agents.
No, I get it, but how?
Don't get it.
I get it.
Comey's never going to talk about that to anybody.
But Malcolm,
until that investigation yields something.
But Malcolm, how does the intelligence committees in the House and the Senate do their job if they can't be read in to the sensitive intelligence? I mean, they're on the Intelligence Committee for the exact purpose of, being the people who would be trusted with this kind of information in an investigation of this sort, which, I don't think we've ever had something like this. But, how do they do their jobs?
Well, I understand that they were read in a couple of weeks ago, and that's when they came out and said they weren't going to talk about it. Very serious information is flying around here. And, the thing is, you can't cover it up with the FBI and have it exposed at the National Security Agency. Or you can't, cover it up at the National Security Agency without, the Central Intelligence Agency or somebody knowing about it. These things are shared even within those very narrow slits.
And they were shared even more widely by the outgoing Obama staffers who wanted to, make sure that these recalcitrant Republicans would be compelled to look at this. Well,
I think what they did was they packaged up information and had it in duplicate so it wouldn't be destroyed.
They also gave it to like Ben Cardin, Mark Secret, and
they're required to do oversight, right? So
right.
If these people are cleared to have that information, you can give them that information,
right? And
but
they
you
did.
need to ask yourself this question: that the previous administration, so distrusted these people as potential assets of a foreign intelligence agency that they had to protect the nation by briefing in the oversight. That's how bad this situation is. We're not even at the start of this, Randy. I mean, we are really, they just saw the iceberg, and they just don't realize it's cutting into their hull right now. We will get to the bottom of this, and it will be well over a year before, it gets to actionable, trouble. But there's a lot of questions that have to be raised. These people need to be brought before courts. Or before Congress. With subpoena power, with the FBI carrying out real investigations. You thought Benghazi was supposed to be something really serious. Benghazi was nothing compared to this. People have died in this. The Russians appear to be on a campaign of cleaning up anyone who spoke to Christopher Steele.
I did a whole show about that the other day, of all these dead Russians. Yes. There were just dead Russians showing up everywhere. Anybody that, might have been a source for that dossier just suddenly had a heart attack or died in the back of a car.
Yeah.
Right?
There's a name for this, by the way, in Russian. It's an old intelligence name that was formed in World War II by the NKVD. It's called SMERSH. And SMERSH is an acronym that stands for Death to Spies. Huh. And it is a functional component of Russian counterintelligence that when you have been caught conducting espionage for a foreign nation, they kill you.
Yeah.
And they still carry this out. My good friend Oleg Kalugin, former KGB general who's on the board of the Spy Museum with me, this man lives in fear that one day he's going to wake up and, there's going to be polonium in his Cheerios.
Oh.
So the Russians, funny thing is, I got into a fight with Glenn Greenwald on Twitter where he was mocking me by saying, you keep referring to Putin as an KGB officer. There is no KGB.
Yeah, I've had that too.
They changed their letter
to FSB,
but their mission, everything they do is exactly the same. It's ludicrous. They are the the KGB.
Yeah.
And they still carry out missions and operations precisely the same way, except now they have supercomputers do it for them.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so creepy. I mean, even the spies are being phased out by robots. It's just it's an amazing thing. Can I just ask you one thing? I mean, there was the news that was breaking just before the Washington Post went to bed last night and gave, the headline for today. About this Sessions thing. The story that they were following was that Donald Trump was now going to allow the generals, especially Mattis, to conduct all kinds of military action without telling him, without going to the president. That he would just be able to. And now there are certain things, if you're in a war zone and there are certain operations that you need to, but that you're there with, supposedly the okay of Congress and the commander in chief. But things like Yemen, they're going to allow. Is this the end of civilian control of the military? Because I thought so when he started appointing all these generals. Not that I have any axe to grind with Mattis or Flynn or with Kelly, but honest to God, man, this is the end of civilian control. If generals can take it into their own hands to put boots on the ground in a place we're really not at war, like Yemen.
Right. It's sort of true. However, look at the level of the units that we're talking here, and this is where it gets a little concerning for me, because I understand that regional and theater commanders need to have the flexibility to go in and carry out these missions without going directly to the White House, right?
Right.
Which is why the Army has, groups, special forces groups called the CIF, right? Commander's Intervention Force, which is a group that can go out and at the, theater level, like South Asia, go out and carry these missions out. However, we're not talking about those forces. We're talking about what used to be called the Special Missions Unit, or now the National Mission Unit. That's Delta Force and DevGRU, right? Naval Special Warfare Development Group, now, formerly known as both of those, and SEAL Team 6.
Right.
Those units are finger pointing at the command of the commander-in-chief. And they are the highest, most highly skilled assets of the United States. Mm-hmm. They should not be deployed unless the president signs the pen. Right, signs
I think so too. And even when he did, look what happened to Ryan Owens. I mean, this was just poorly done over dinner. This was not, this was a shame. But
this is all about him being able to not take blame for any.
See, and that's what we said last night. Howard and I were sitting there watching this story right before this other news broke, and I said, "This is more than plausible deniability. This is complete and total deniability." And that's what he'll do anyway, because he is the blame president. And what did he do? He personalized Ryan as if he knew Ryan Owens. Although Obama did. There are photos of Ryan Owens in Obama's Oval Office playing with the dog. But okay, so he stands up, he recognizes his widow, which I thought was, a beautiful thing. I mean, I'd have to be dead inside not to think that was, really special for her. But he keeps on calling him by his first name and blah, blah, blah. He's DevGRU, he's SEAL, SEAL Team 6. Mm-hmm. And what does he do? He goes, my generals lost Ryan. My generals did.
Right.
And now he turns around and he says to Mattis, you know what? You just do all the military operations. Don't come to me. Don't come to me. I don't want to be involved, because he doesn't want to be the commander in chief with the responsibility that goes with it. He just wants to wear the freaking flight jacket and the hat. Right. No. And you know what? Donald Trump has never been a buck stops here guy. No.
And what upsets me the most is I see writing done by journalists who will go out of their way and roll over and say, well, this is him acting like a CEO. No, CEOs don't act like this. CEOs don't hold everyone below them responsible and them not responsible to the shareholders. It's the other way around, right?
Right.
I mean, CEOs are held accountable for what everyone under them does, and then the shareholders get rid of them when they perform poorly.
Right.
But Donald Trump
America is not
just doesn't want any blame.
None. And so now he's said to the generals, go ahead, launch ISIS raids without my okay. Just go ahead and do it. It won't be over my signature, though. You're going to be on your own. I mean, it's like he's setting people up to take the fall, where he's supposed to be the ultimate authority when it comes to, being the commander. I mean, that's the end of the chain of command. It goes all the way up to him. Now it stops at General Mattis. It's very bizarre. I got to tell you, Malcolm. I
agree.
Yeah, I don't understand. How our soldiers are gonna do this. Like I said, I said this a long time ago before you and I got to know each other. I said that if this happens, if Trump becomes president, there will be a civil war inside the military. I kind of knew that would happen. Based on his position on torture and things not in the Army field manual, etc., and his saying, I'll bomb the shit out of them, and torture is good, and blah blah blah, and all the
right.
And I just knew that there, because I did serve, there are people who will not follow illegal orders. Period. They won't do it. And I don't know if you know this, but I got sued by a giant defense contractor because I followed the torture story and found that there were contractors in Abu Ghraib, and I found that they were in cell block 1A, blah, blah, blah. I knew who they were, and I put it out on the air. And I got sued, and I won, but they appealed it. And I went all the way to the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, which is the most conservative circuit, and they found for me that I had done reliable reporting and that I was truthful and accurate and blah, blah, blah. And so, but that was part of my life for 5 years. And what made me do it was because those low-ranking reservists went to Leavenworth, and I couldn't stand it because it was done with the authority of Rumsfeld's signature. And
right.
Yeah, and so now I can see this all happening all over again, but to the nth degree.
Right. Well, it's certainly it's
going not going to be low-ranking reservists, Malcolm. It's going to be DevGru.
The things that we noticed during that period of time is that all of those abuses came because the pace was set by the commander-in-chief. And, I said when I was over there, I was an intelligence contractor there. Fortunately, I wasn't working on torture because I would have been kicking everybody's butt. But I would have been the person who would have been arrested, right, trying to stop them from torturing people. It's absolutely ridiculous. And now, we're talking that the loyalty of the armed forces is going to be centered around his personal popularity, not the mission, not the duty to the nation. This reminds me way back when in the mid last decade, there were actually Velcro patches people would put on their uniforms that, their gear that said, "We'll die for Bush."
Oh, God.
For George W. Bush. There will be "We'll die for Trump" thing.
Well, you already saw, a warfighter, a Marine unit going down the road. I don't know what state they were in.
That was a Naval Special Warfare Group 2. SEALs again.
In North Carolina?
The one that was in, actually, Illinois. With the flags?
Yes.
On the Humvees?
Yes.
Trump flags? Yeah, that was a DevGru unit. Not DevGru.
No.
A regular SEAL unit administrative team.
So you see, this is what I'm saying. And they're the exact people that are going to be, sacrificed at the altar of, "I didn't send you there. You did this on your own."
Right.
You get it? I mean, this is a nightmare, and this is a nightmare for the people who serve. This is a nightmare for people who really, really are courageous, who really are brave, who do, like Bill Maher said to you, and I love that he said this to you. This man does crap that saves your life, and now they're going to be served up. It used to be just low-ranking reservists go to Leavenworth. Well, now it's
you and I always fall back on our military careers, but here's the place that really worries me the most.
Mine wasn't so great.
It doesn't matter.
It was okay.
You got past 6 months, you're a veteran, right?
I got past 6 years, actually. So
yeah, good enough.
Yeah.
I mean, it's okay. You were a chairman, but that's my little airman chairman joke.
Yes, I was an airman.
But the real organization to look out for is Immigration, Customs Enforcement, and Border Patrol.
Oh, my God.
They are becoming a military force for the president.
Yes. Yes.
And, the funny thing is, those unions love him. They're going to add another,
why those unions love him?
1,000 agents.
He's relaxing the requirements to be a border agent. He is hiring border agents, and these border agents can't pass lie detector tests. I mean, some of them are felons. Some of them, and they can't pass lie detector tests. And so the DHS is going to relax the hiring requirements. And they're going to say it's because we need so many Border Patrol, because we have this crazy influx of asylum seekers coming here from Honduras. We're in the middle of a drug war.
This is ridiculous. They will, they have the potential to already becoming a force of abuse.
I agree
and
with
you. That first night of the immigration ban, I was embarrassed and ashamed for them that these people who were supposed to be law enforcement professionals would go, essentially go the Stanford, the Stanford resistance test, right? The Stanford prison test.
Oh yeah.
Where suddenly, we can do this. Well, I'm going to do that to the nth degree.
Yeah.
And blocking Muhammad Ali's son from coming in. What kind of moron, would be so stupid to say that?
I mean, there was a woman who gave an immigration speech, and then right after her immigration speech, the border people came in and deported her.
And that's happening that's coming from the space being set at the national level. So this is essentially Abu Ghraib like activities with Customs and Border Patrol. And, I know a lot of those guys and they're law enforcement, but I think this is being set at the Donald Trump level. It will not serve the country.
No, it's all militarization. It really is, and suppression of civil. It's just a giant tornado. It's a vortex we're all being sucked into. Hey, listen, I'll watch you tonight. Thank you for doing my show today. Thanks, Malcolm.
It's my pleasure. Take care.
Thank you. You too. Malcolm Nance, everybody. Malcolm Nance.